we want to customers to scale efficiently. In the last talk at Wall Street, our CEO pointed out that inefficient data spend is a ticking time bomb.
There's always going to be sort of like high standards generally, but I think that makes you better. Look, we also have very high expectations of our engineering organization. We put a lot of pressure on them to deliver a lot of different things at very high velocity.
Regardless, we want to do the right thing for the customer. That's our first priority at Snowflake.
Welcome to FinOps in Action. I'm your host, Alon Arvatz. Each week, I'll sit down with FinOps experts to explore the toughest challenges between FinOps and engineering. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FinOps in Action. Today, I'm honored to welcome two very, very good friends and very, very good, not to say amazing, FinOps practitioners. The first one, he has deep experience in multiple public companies as a FinOps practitioner, and he was one of the founding members of the FinOps Foundation, actually speaking at the first meeting where the foundation was announced. That's cool. Today is Senior Finance Manager at Snowflake, Alex Landis. Alex, how are you today?
Hey, Alon, good to be here. Excited to chit chat as always.
I'm excited to chat as well. And alongside Alex, we have also a very, very interesting person. He actually started at Cloudwiry, a FinOps vendor that provided a solution for managing reservations. After that, he became a FinOps practitioner at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And today, he is a value engineer at Snowflake. Simar Aurora, how are you today?
Very nice to meet you, Alan. Excited to be a part of it.
Great. And let's start with ask a very, very question that I'm sure everyone wants to understand. Why do Snowflake have two different FinOps function? Alex, can you start and explain it to us?
First, again, thanks for having us on here. Where I think and why we have two people on this podcast is that, at Snowflake, we've got very distinct verticals in the FinOps space. And we hold this really really place in the market where, much like, AWS, GCP, Azure, we're both consumers of our own product, as well as are always trying to help our customers get better value out of the Snowflake platform. And so where I sit is really thinking about how does Snowflake consume third-party services, and how do we think about being better practitioners of consuming our own service internally. Simar and his team are, great evangelists and really deeply intertwined with all of our customers, some of our largest customers, for how they think about what does healthy look like for being a Snowflake customer? How do you get value out of the Snowflake platform? How do you really think about using this as an enterprise tool that's helping you to really build your own business? And so, it's really sort of two sides of the same coin for Snowflake, but are both super important for making sure that we're getting maximum customer value out of what we bring to the market.
Absolutely. That actually makes a lot of sense. I'm sure that AWS and Azure also have different functions, for example. And I'm curious if you actually collaborate. So these are obviously two different roles on the one hand. But on the other hand, you're both doing FinOps or helping others doing FinOps. So, Simar, can you give us some context if there is some collaboration between you two?
Yes, definitely. So not as big surprise, but Snowflake is also the biggest consumer of Snowflake. So we use Snowflake across 8 or 9 of our different divisions: marketing, finance, product finance, etc. So in 2020, what we realized is we need to manage Snowflake spend as well, which is very similar to doing FinOps on cloud. So think of it as FinOps on Snowflake. So that is how this idea began, that Snowflake needs to be managed. We need to have FinOps policies on warehouse right sizing, consolidation, all optimization stuff. And Alex and my team collaborates in a company-wide overview, which is called Snow on Snow. It's called Snowflake on Snowflake, and FinOps is a part of that we work together on.
Cool. And Alex, is there some, community work that maybe you're collaborating on with the foundation or with other FinOps practitioners?
Yeah, so I actually met Simar before I joined Snowflake. We ran into each other at FinOps X a couple of years ago. I don't think he remembered, but I remember. To call him out for it, but 'cause that's my nature. And when I joined Snowflake just over a year ago, he was one of the first people I reached out to say, like, hey, we've got this long experience with the FinOps Foundation. How do we try to incentivize Snowflake to lean in more? And so that's been a journey that we've been on for a while. And, we're key partners on trying to push Snowflake and getting us finally across the line and joining the foundation as enterprise members. Like the highest tier vendor member we did a few months ago at this point, and then getting additional traction going into FinOps X, where we can really bring the organization along to, just really lean in publicly to this FinOps motion that we have been doing at a very high level internally for some time. And so it's been a really interesting partnership to be able to join those two sort of sides of the tree that I've been talking about, both that externally facing motion as well as our internal FinOps teams, so we can really think more and more deeply about just how we evangelize this kind of stuff.
And I actually experienced it myself. I don't know if you remember, Alex, but you introduced me to Simar right after you joined Snowflake at FinOps X. Told me, hey, listen, there is a really, really cool, smart guy here at Snowflake you need to meet. And you made the introduction. So I assume you're also a well-known person at the industry, Alex. As we said, founding member of the foundation. So it happened a lot that you introduced to Simar, like people that you know, and he might be helpful to them.
No way. Simar knows way more people than I do.
No way, Alex.
So Simar, and I'll let him talk to this, was actually a part of the FinOps Foundation as they were building over the last few years before, joining Snowflake and doing some of the other things that he's done with his career. So he's got deep, deep relationships around the industry. Much like you, Alon, at FinOps X, I just run all the people who I know from around everywhere. I'm always surprised by the folks that Simar knows who I've never met before. So, it's a good group to be running around with.
That's great. And you mentioned how Snowflake is leaning in more and more to become part of the community and the foundation. We're now just a week after FinOps X. And just a couple weeks ago, it was announced that Snowflake became a premier member at the FinOps Foundation. And I'm curious, how did you convince a Snowflake to become a premier member at the foundation?
It was a long journey, I'll put it that way. But where I think we ultimately get to is, one, a lot of engagement with our customers. And that's something that Simar and his team have done a lot of, where we're hearing from folks that, Snowflake not being a part of the FinOps community, not really evangelizing this, was seen as a gap. Two, we're seeing FinOps and engaging with FinOps personas be more and more important for our overall engagement for just with our customers. A thing that you get out of being at the FinOps Foundation at these conferences is that sort of engagement with folks that your enterprise executives don't always engage with, whether that's finance or procurement or, folks who are just really focused on optimization and care deeply about how their companies run. And so I think we recognize that that's becoming more and more and more important just of how we engage across companies. So I think that plus, just doing the legwork of getting a few really key stakeholders internally. We have VP Vishal Murata. We also have Director Doug Gallagher, who've been really instrumental in getting this across the line. That then also became kind of like a cross-collaborative effort internally, where folks finally got to the point of saying, yes, this is really important to us. Let's move it forward. Let's make sure that we're getting a lot of good value out of it. And I think we're seeing all those things happening very, very quickly, as evidenced by, everything we've already said about, the type of engagements that we're having at the conferences.
Yeah, for sure. And today we're actually in the Cloud Plus era. So obviously FinOps people are looking at things that are beyond cloud. And probably the first things they'll look at, it will be Snowflake, as something that is, represents significant part of their spend. Simar, I'm kind of curious, what is the engagement model with Snowflake customers? Like, who do you work with? What type of value you help them drive, and how the collaboration looks like?
So just because of the nature of our team, like we have close to 12,000 plus customers now. And the KPI I have is meeting 10 customers per quarter. So if I am catching up with 10 customers per quarter, there are still a lot more customers who need help on FinOps work or FinOps for Snowflake. And because of the nature of my work, it is primarily who are some of the top spenders on Snowflake is where we do FinOps workshops or we go for FinOps best practices on Snowflake. So what I felt was since I come from the foundation and I've worked in the FinOps Foundation also previously for an internship project, is if we join the FinOps Foundation, we can open the gates that this information that is gated now for the top Snowflake customers who are spending a lot, like what are the best practices on Snowflake spend management, it can become widespread. And our main goal as Snowflake is that customers are scaling efficiently on Snowflake. Data and AI will continue to grow. And so customers need to be aware, like where is the dollars coming from, having the show back, charge back, and the efficiency metrics.
Interesting. And do you see a difference in FinOps maturity when it comes to cloud versus Snowflake?
I would say it has been a journey over past 1 year for me. So when I joined Snowflake and I used to go to customer meetings, it was like, oh my God, all the FinOps concepts are available, are applicable to Snowflake as well. But there are customers who are at run stage in cloud, but they are in crawl to walk in the Snowflake spend management. So a lot of these are inter-applicable domains. And this is something we are also seeing from the FinOps Foundation now. FinOps practitioners' role is expanding to be more cloud plus. So a lot of more FinOps practitioners are also reaching out to me. Like I'm starting to manage Snowflake now. I'm starting to manage data spend now. Can you give me a head start? Like what all do I need to know so that I can get started fast on it? So it's a two-way thing that is happening here and people are slowly moving towards from crawl to walk. And there are some customers in run as well, but it's limited right now.
So would it be fair to say that where FinOps for Cloud was 5 years ago, that is the current status with FinOps for Snowflake?
I would say we can extend it. That's the status of FinOps for data right now overall, because, and for Snowflake as well. And a lot of problems will be solved. Like I'm sure like point 0.5 will be supporting Snowflake in the near term. So vendors will start supporting Snowflake. And we have already joined the FinOps Foundation and a lot of exciting updates will be coming over the coming years.
Interesting. And Alex, we talked about Snow for Snow. So you obviously manage also Snowflake spend. So I'm curious, do you feel that like the best practices and the knowledge in the industry when it comes to cloud is a lot more advanced than when it comes to solutions like Snowflake?
So I actually think you kind of nailed it when you called out the time. You've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this a long time, right? Like we've seen kind of how this has evolved from the beginning. I think part of it has to do with materiality. So many enterprises kind of scaled into true, third-party cloud service providers much earlier than I think they're scaling to significant material spend on some additional tools. It's out there, but like when you have one, glaring piece of your P&L that's on, Azure, right? That's going to be where your focus is. So now I think is there's just more dollars, more percent of, overall margin that's going towards some of these other tools. That's where you're starting to see this real focus coming into play. I also think that what that's doing is it's dragging along some of these corporate functions that haven't been as technical in the past. So, I like to pride myself that our finance team are some of the most technical folks in finance that I've ever met. I think that needs to be more and more the norm just as we continue moving forward in this overall cycle. Especially as you see that kind of in like startups, right? Like folks need to understand the overall ecosystem of like how product works, how you interact with all these different vendors, and then deeply understand the cost drivers of these different vendors. That's just the evolution of FinOps. And as it expands to all these other functions, I think you're going to be able to have more and more of these rich conversations with folks where they do understand the nuts and bolts of just how everything comes together.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that you're definitely one of the more technical finance team that I've ever met as well. So I can definitely approve what you're saying here. And Alex, Simar said something interesting. He said that like there is a concept of FinOps for data. Do you feel that doing FinOps for cloud is different than doing FinOps for a data warehouse like Snowflake, or it's like more or less the same? Just you need to apply the same things for different metrics or different I don't know, KPIs.
It's an interesting question. I mean, it's different, definitely different flavors in my view, right? Where I think it potentially differs is you could be talking purely about sort of infrastructure management and sort of saying, whatever, this EC2 instance is doing X, Y, and Z, and it cost me $5 versus the attribution component of that to say, that EC2 instance belongs to Alon. And, he's the one who didn't turn it off for whatever reason because, he's distracted with his kids and that then a bunch of dollars over the weekend, right? That to me is more the data problem, right? Attribution is still, to me, the key thing that has not yet been solved at really major scale across all these different tools. There are a lot of different ways to do it. But I think that's probably the way that I think about differentiating, data versus cloud, for lack of a better way of putting it.
In my opinion, it brings in a lot more personas as well, because earlier on the cloud spend, it was primarily for the EC2 sites, engineers need to take action. Now it's a lot more personas when we are including Cloud Plus, because they are data scientists who need to manage spend well. They're data engineers who need to manage spend well. And when we have new personas, then the education has to go on again for these new personas on the FinOps, that you have to start thinking about FinOps. How frequently are refreshing your pipelines? How frequently are you using your data warehousing tools? So this opens the door in FinOps for a lot more personas also, is what I feel.
Very interesting. And Simar, so what are the key challenges that your customers are facing?
The main obviously the challenge is the disconnect between finance and CDOs right now. So earlier it was, and we have seen this in the cloud previously, the disconnect between FinOps and engineering teams. But since data is exploding now, AI is exploding now, so the data costs are also rising. And where the finance comes in now, people like Alex come in is, my Snowflake cost is this much, where we are spending the money. So now the data team needs to have a FinOps practice, and they need to go through the complete circle of life: visibility, control, and optimize. So the visibility needs to be, in my viewpoint, visibility is the first step before moving towards optimization. So the visibility needs to be brought in, like which teams are spending what money. And that's something that may be in the walk stage for a lot of cloud customers, but that is in early stage right now. And that is the main problem at this stage, along with optimization levers. So our team combines both of these two together. We also have a great product management team led by Dinesh Haridas. So we are constantly rolling out product features to enable the FinOps circle of life: visibility, control, and optimize.
And I have to say, I agree with you that visibility should come before optimization. But I'm curious, why do customers reach out to you? Do they typically reach out to you because they tell you, hey, Simar, we don't know who uses Snowflake, how much it spends on what, etc.? or most of the customers come and tell you, hey, we're paying a lot, help us optimize our costs?
It is a combination of two factors. One is, as Snowflakes, we want to customers to scale efficiently. In the last talk at Wall Street, our CEO pointed out that inefficient data spend is a ticking time bomb. So it's just a moment of time that customers will realize they are not scaling efficiently and need to put the checks in. And as Snowflake, we want to be long-term partners for our customers. And for that long-term partner thing, we need to make sure that customers are scaling efficiently as they are bringing in more use cases on the Snowflake platform. Another insight we have had, meeting with hundreds of customers, is that when we enable customers to do FinOps or get efficient on Snowflake, they treat us more as partners rather than vendors, and it enables us to do more with them. So it enables more use cases with them, more revenue with them. So those are some of the reasons why my team cares about it, and why do we proactively reach out to customers also a lot of times.
Cool. And obviously, the data warehouse space, it's a space with very strong competition. Companies like Databricks, the cloud providers themselves. Do you see it at Snowflake also as a competitive advantage? The fact that you help your customers with FinOps or help them optimize their costs?
Definitely, right? I think to the partnership comment that Simar made, I think that really resonates with me. Again, on my side of the house, when I can have these deep conversations with AWS, for example, about how are we consuming their resources, how are we thinking about long-term partnerships, contract structures, resell opportunities, things like that, and we can avoid having the conversation about, why am I spending so much money on your platform? That really is transformative in how you think about building that arm of your business. And I think that that's a really key differentiator for any third-party tool that you're using, right? It's taken a long time to help folks get to a point where they really fully understand the scope of consuming these different tools across the entire industry. And so the more we can do that as Snowflake, and look, Databricks is leaning into this too, the better we can serve our customers to understand that they're getting that value out of our platform. So, really leaning into that narrative for us is one of the key reasons why we decided to join the foundation and put our logo up there on the big screen saying that we care about this. And so I think it just helps us continue that motion going forward.
And from my perspective, I can also add one more point. Regardless, we want to do the right thing for the customer. That's our first priority at Snowflake. So I know, just as it happened in the cloud, Google joined and Microsoft came together, then AWS came together. Similar trends will happen in the data industry as well, and Databricks will also join. But regardless, our customers should get value out of Snowflake and value out of the data. That's our main goal. And I think we are pioneering in that space.
And Alex, I want to go back to FinOps at Snowflake. And you mentioned that you're one of the more technical finance team. You're obviously, and I think that's a well-known fact, you're one of the most sophisticated engineering teams as well, the engineering team at Snowflake. So I would guess it's connected to each other. You have a very strong engineering team, so there's expectation for the finance team to be very technical. Are there any other challenges that you feel that you face because you're working with a very sophisticated engineering organization?
I mean, look, there's always going to be sort of high standards generally, but I think that makes you better. So, look, we also have very high expectations of our engineering organization. We put a lot of pressure on them to deliver a lot of different things at very high velocity. So it'd be wrong to not call out that, we're really fortunate to have them as really key partners. Samar mentioned the FinOps focused tooling that our product org is putting out for our customers, right? Like they're doing that at high velocity. They're making sure they're getting high quality value out of our tools. That's the expectation at Snowflake. Everybody's moving quick. Everybody's trying to do the right thing. So from a pure finance perspective, we go, very deep and very broad across our platform and our product offerings. We really speak in the language of both, the cloud providers which underpin our business, Snowflake as an offering and understanding all the different, cost and value drivers of the platform. And then also how we're thinking about going to market, how we're thinking about different types of technical implementations for building those new product offerings. How we're thinking about building the company around doing all the things that we want to do in order to enable what our customers care about. And so, I think if you don't have that level of understanding of sort of how you're building your platform, you do lose a little bit of the ability to execute with that type of velocity.
Alex, taking into consideration all the experience you have in multiple companies, very different engineering teams, do you feel that when your engineering team is stronger, you have to work harder to inject the business context and make sure they understand the business? Not necessarily.
I'm not the expert in how we're building things. That's why we hire really strong engineers. So to a certain extent, I'm helping to. I view the position of our finance team as being able to understand everything that's going on, pressure check, but ultimately be able to enable us to do the right things. And so I have to trust, and I do trust that like our partners are asking us for all the right things so we can help them kind of like work through the different problem sets that we run into. But it's being able to say, hey, here are these different ways that we can kind of squeeze our overall profile in order to enable the business to do X, Y, and Z. That's where I really want to make sure that finance can always slot in. And then being able to present all those different approaches and drawbacks, et cetera, with that type of velocity is the thing that I think we need to be able to do.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And you already shared with us a lot of your knowledge and information about Snowflake and how Snowflake does FinOps and how Snowflake helps its customers to do FinOps. I'd be happy to take a shift and learn more about you on the personal level. So Alex, we can start with you. So you live today in San Francisco, right?
Been here for about 15 years, yeah.
Wow. Right on the beach.
2 blocks, but yeah, pretty specific. So transparently, Alon has been to my house before, and he and I had some like business talks just walking down the beach.
Wow.
I hope he holds that near and dear.
Yeah, since then I have a dream to live on the beach. Maybe one day I will be Alex Landis. And, and Alex, is there a book or movie that you really liked and you would like to recommend?
I didn't know I had the option for a movie, so I did go book.
You can go both.
Yeah, there you go. Those who know me well will know that I recommend The Power Broker, which is a biography of Robert Moses, who was one of the lead. He was a very powerful architect of New York City in the early 20th century. It's a really interesting view on what it means to wield power in various ways for good and bad. An interesting read, a very tough read, but one of the more rewarding ones that I've done in my life.
I think there was also a movie about that, no?
Maybe, probably. Can't comment.
Anyway, I think there was a movie not about him, about the mayor at the time when they built the Central Park, I think.
I don't know.
Maybe it's like, similar stories or on the same time frame. Okay, very, very interesting.
Well, as a New York guy, I think it's up to you to get solve.
That's true. Although your family is also from New York originally, no, Alex?
It's true.
Okay, got it. And Simar, you live today at Pleasanton, also in California, correct?
Yes.
How did you get to Pleasanton?
Okay. So I was staying in Austin before this with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and so my manager gave me a call last December. He knew me because of the FinOps Foundation. December 2023. So it was like, Simar, I'm building this FinOps team, but you have to be in California for this because there are only two people in this team right now. So if we are in person, we can collaborate better. The productivity will be much higher as we grow together in this space. So that's how I decided to move to California. And it's so beautiful as well. Like the weather is so nice and lots of hiking places around, which is really fun for me.
You get the sun over by you.
Yes, and you obviously make me jealous, both of you, because of the beach and because of the weather. And Simar, any book or movie that you'd like to recommend?
Yeah. So there was books and interests. Okay. So from the book side, it's a book that had a huge impact on my life, like, and it's how I live my life as well. It's called Go Giver. It's one of the very highly rated books on Amazon, but it primarily is a fundamental shifter. The more value you create for others, the more you get in return in life. So just yesterday, I was having my quarterly review with my manager, and he was telling me Simon needs to be a good chief marketing officer for his own brand because you will speak about yourself, like what work you're doing. But I continue hearing from others that you're doing this, you're doing good work here. So, and I was like pointing into this book. I live my life with this principle that the more value I create for others, fundamentally in the long run, it will be more rewarding for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, and sounds very much aligned with your day-to-day job, giving value to others.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. And Alex, what do you like to do outside of work except for walks on the beach?
Yeah, it's kids. That's pretty much my all my. But yeah, just being outside as much as I can.
Okay. And Simar, how about yourself?
For me, it's a lot of hiking. I also like mentoring college students because I just graduated 2 years back from university, and getting my first gig was a pain, like applying to hundreds of jobs. In America, it's difficult. Uh, so that's what I like to do, mentor young people that they will get a gig, enjoy the college time, and substantially when they're near graduation, there will roles open up that they will find something. That's one thing that's close to me. Another close aspect is meditation and yoga that has been a part of my life for the last 4 or 5 years, and it makes me a lot calmer in my day-to-day life.
That's really nice. Definitely on my bucket list to do some meditation. I'll get there one day. I promise. I promise. And it's great to learn more about you. I thought I knew you, but I learned a few new things today. So that's always great. And I'm sure that our listeners also learn a lot of new stuff also on the professional level. If our listeners want to reach out to you, ask questions, learn more, what is the best way to do that?
I mean, either LinkedIn via LinkedIn or via the FinOps Foundation Slack. I'm pretty active on there. Or I would guess I won't give out my email address. You're getting scammed, but yeah, those are probably the best.
Yeah, well, like LinkedIn and FinOps Foundation Slack.
LinkedIn and FinOps Foundation Slack. That's great. You heard them, guys. If you want to reach out, learn more, that's the way to go. Simar and Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting us along. This is great.
Thank you.
For sure. And I would also like to thank our listeners for joining us once again. I'm sure you all learned a lot just as much as I did, and I hope you enjoyed just as much as I did. If you really had fun, please share with a friend. Tell them about the podcast. Alex and Simar, thank you again. This has been another fascinating, fun episode of FinOps in Action. See you next time.
That wraps up another episode of FinOps in Action. Thank you for joining. For show notes and more, please visit finopsinaction.com. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action.